Autoimmune disease is a rising concern in the wellness industry. According to the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, autoimmune diseases such as type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, lupus, and rheumatoid arthritis affect millions of Canadians. It seems like these conditions are becoming increasingly common, and many people are struggling to manage or control their symptoms. But what if a hidden culprit in our diets is triggering or worsening these conditions? I'm not talking about the usual suspects like gluten, dairy, or sugar. I'm talking about phytate. Sometimes called an anti-nutrient, phytic acid is found in many of the foods we eat every day. Grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, breads, pastas, crackers, and nut butters. And for some, it could be disrupting nutrient absorption and potentially contributing to a myriad of health issues. Joining me today to unpack this fascinating topic is Amy Puzey, a nutritionist-turned-health-entrepreneur who has been investigating a new approach that could offer hope for those affected. She's here to share her findings and explain how we can better support our health in the face of this growing problem. Thank you for coming and joining us, Amy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Julie. Good
so
to be here.
Let's start a bit and talk about you, about your experience as a nutritionist and what inspired you to start looking at natural alternatives.
So I started in nursing at the University of Alberta, and I just felt like I wanted to be on the preventative side of healthcare. So I switched into nutrition and worked as a nutritionist for 9 years. And I was reading a few different books about nutrition. And even after my diploma, I had never heard of phytic acid or phytates before. So when I came across it, I thought, this is significant. I have to investigate this further. And that just started 15 years of research.
So I also understand you were an ultra runner, and you mentioned you were a nurse before you became a nutritionist. So how did that affect your interest in this, switching from nursing to nutritionist?
Yeah, so I did 3 years of nursing, of a nursing degree, and then I switched into nutrition. So I didn't actually become a full nurse. But even just working in the hospitals at university and seeing the people that were suffering, the myriad of drugs that they were on, they didn't know a lot of the drugs that they were on. They weren't helping the nutrition that was being given. Often, Ensure and these horrible drinks that are just oil and dairy and sugar with some micronutrients thrown in there. It didn't feel like health to me. And I didn't see anyone actually getting better. It felt like, a lot of people say this, but it feels like sick care, not health care. So I wanted to really start working on the other side of it. I'd seen Crohn's and colitis patients suffering, diarrhea that just wouldn't stop. And I wanted to do something about it. And it, within the parameters of that nursing degree, you couldn't go into juices or health food or really even talk that much about nutrition.
So let's talk a minute about hidden hunger, because that's something that you talk about. What inspired you to take on this problem specifically?
So hidden hunger is even when somebody has enough calories, and they may have enough, they may be getting, say, 2,000 calories a day, they're not actually absorbing micronutrients. So these critical micronutrients like zinc, iron, calcium, magnesium, amino acids, proteins, you're not absorbing them. So you're actually, even though you may look like you are nourished, you're starving for nutrients, if that makes sense, because you're unable to absorb them. So that's hidden hunger, and it affects about 2 to 3 billion people worldwide are micronutrient deficient.
That's a huge number, a huge number. Mm-hmm. So how did you come across phytate in the first place? It's not something you hear about regularly, as you mentioned.
No, and it's surprising that it's still not out there more, and that it's not being discussed more, because phytate is such a strong chelator to micronutrients. So it binds to those micronutrients and prevents your body from absorbing them. So it's called an anti-nutrient. And it's in so many common foods. So in Africa, it's about 80% of the diet is grain-based or lentils or pulses. The rest of the world, it's probably more like 50%. But if we're eating these foods that are high in phytic acid or phytate, then you're unable to get those nutrients out of your food. It's just a waste of, to some extent, it's a waste of calories because you can't absorb those nutrients.